For Reid, and I call the member for Jellybrain.
Well, thank you, Deputy Speaker. And this morning we've seen the kind of, quote, respectful debate that Malcolm Turnbull's completely unnecessary $160 million marriage equality plebiscite will bring to Australia. This image, that's a photoshopped rainbow noose around the neck of a woman. It's crap produced by a group called the Australian Marriage Alliance, which describes itself as a, quote, independent alliance bringing together individuals and organisations supporting a common cause that is opposing marriage equality. Now, while the Australian Marriage Alliance claims to speak for mainstream Australia or the silent majority, it will not disclose who funds it or who is a member of it. This is a group that regularly quotes data opposing marriage equality but refuses to disclose the sources for this data. It's a group who recently accused marriage equality advocates of, quote, exploiting the death of a married gay man, David Bulmer-Rizzi, for, quote, political purposes, by objecting to the fact that Mr Bulmer-Rizzi's widower was not recognised as his husband on his death certificate under Australian law. Understandably, Mr Bulmer-Rizzi took objection to this hurtful travesty that was inflicted on him in his time of mourning. Yet the Australian Marriage Alliance, pointing out this injustice was, quote, emotional manipulation. Now, despite their bleating, these groups do not want a debate. A debate implies that there are people who are willing to change their minds. But as we've seen through the comments of Senators Abetz, Bernardi and McKenzie in recent times, not even an overwhelming majority result in favour of marriage equality at the plebiscite will change their minds or their votes. They've made it clear that their position is not for moving. Indeed, BuzzFeed News has contacted the Australian Marriage Alliance 18 times to request an interview without response. Now, it is only a tiny, tiny minority of the Australian public that hold these bigoted views against the LGBTI Australians. But by committing to a national plebiscite on this issue, Malcolm Turnbull will be giving them a megaphone. The opponents of marriage equality are demanding that both sides of the marriage equality issue are provided with taxpayer funding to make their case to the Australian public. This means that Malcolm Turnbull will be writing cheques to the type of groups.
Excuse me, could
the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, not the old Prime Minister, will be writing cheques to the kinds of groups who Photoshop rainbow nooses over stock photos. He'll be writing cheques to the kind of groups who produce television ads telling LGBTI Australians that they are flawed parents who will damage their children. He'll be writing cheques to the groups that will install billboards telling LGBTI teenagers that the love they feel and the relationships that they enter into are inferior to heterosexual love and not deserving of the recognition from the society in which they live. You could understand why the former Prime Minister, the member for Tony Abbott, wanted this. After all, the former Prime Minister was comfortable with groups like the Australian Marriage Alliance. He recently told the US Alliance Defending Freedom group, a group that has actively sought to roll back anti-discrimination laws, that homosexuality was a personal choice. But why will Malcolm Turnbull write them a cheque? Because it's easier than showing leadership in his party.
Member's time has expired.